Chosen one, why have you been running from the same dream for 20 years? Why does that same inexplicable longing wake you at 3 a.m., whispering your name when the world is silent? Why do you feel like you're living someone else's life while your real destiny sits locked behind a door you can't seem to find? Stop everything, right now. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. You didn't casually click here because you were bored. Something deeper, something ancient and eternal pulled you to this exact moment. God himself pressed pause on heaven's breath to get your attention. This is your burning bush moment, chosen one. The knock at your soul's door that you've been waiting for your entire life. Here's the shocking truth they never told you. Every broken piece of your story, every valley that nearly destroyed you, every door that slammed shut in your fascinony of it was random. It was orchestrated. You've been living in the wilderness, but God has been leading you through it, not abandoning you in it. You feel different because you are different. That restlessness in your spirit, that's not dissatisfaction, that's divine displacement. You're homesick for a place you've never been, hungry for a purpose you can't yet name, desperate for a life that feels authentically yours. The reason you felt so lost is because you haven't arrived yet. But today, this very moment, God is revealing the coordinates to the place meant for your spirit. Not just any place, the place. The one he designed specifically for you before you took your first breath. Your spirit is already stirring, isn't it? Something inside you is saying yes before your mind can catch up. That's not emotion, that's recognition. Your soul remembers what your circumstances made you forget. Before we go any deeper into this divine revelation, I need you to do something that signals to heaven you're ready to receive what God wants to release. If something in your spirit is already stirring if you feel the weight of this moment, drop a 777 in the comments. Let heaven know you're listening. Let the angels know someone down here is finally ready to come home to their purpose. And to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks, your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. If this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. I ask only one thing: stay with me until the very end. What you're about to hear might just explain your entire life, because God is about to reveal why you felt so displaced and where he's been leading you all along. Your real life is about to begin. Why did everyone else seem to get their breakthrough at 25 while you're still waiting at 55? Why did that perfect job slip through your fingers 3 times? Why did the people you loved most walk away just when you needed them to stay? You've been asking these questions for decades, haven't you? Lying awake at 2 a.m., wondering if God forgot your address. Watching others sail past you while you felt stuck in quicksand. Questioning whether you did something wrong, whether you missed some cosmic memo that everyone else received. Here's what the enemy never wanted you to discover. Your journey wasn't harder because you were cursed. It was different because you were chosen. Let me tell you something that will reshape everything you thought you knew about your story. That invisible thread you felt tugging at your heart your entire life, that restlessness that made you feel like you didn't quite fit anywhere, that wasn't your imagination. That was God weaving you into a tapestry so intricate, so purposeful, that it required a completely different path. The Bible declares in Jeremiah 1-5, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." Not after you proved yourself, not after you got your act together. Before your first breath, God had already marked you as different. He had already chosen you for a destiny that required a specialized preparation. Think about Joseph, 17 years old, favored by his father, blessed with prophetic dreams. Then boom, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison. For 13 years, his life looked like a cosmic mistake. His family thought he was dead. His dreams seemed like cruel jokes. But here's what Joseph couldn't see from the bottom of that pit. Every betrayal was building his character. Every false accusation was developing his integrity. Every year in prison was preparing him to rule a nation. God wasn't punishing Joseph. He was promoting him through adversity. Your broken engagement wasn't God's rejection. It was his protection. That business that failed wasn't your failure. It was preparation for something bigger. Those doors that slammed shut weren't roadblocks. They were redirections toward your real destiny. You see, chosen one, ordinary people get ordinary preparations. But you were drafted into a divine blueprint that required extraordinary resilience, uncommon wisdom, and unshakable faith. Every loss carved out more room in your heart for compassion. Every delay developed your patience for God's timing. Every disappointment deepened your dependence on His strength. Look at Esther, an orphan girl who lost everything, raised by her cousin, living in exile. The last person you'd expect to save an entire nation. But God positioned her in the palace for such a time as this. Her pain wasn't pointless, it was preparation for purpose. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. 40 years. Can you imagine the conversations he had with God? Did you forget about me? Am I too old now? Why didn't you use me when I was young and strong? But those 40 years weren't wasted time. They were wilderness training for wilderness leadership. Romans 8:28 promises us. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Not some things, all things. That divorce that broke your heart, that child you lost, that dream that died, that betrayal that left you bleeding. All of it, every single painful piece is being woven together for your good. But here's where most people miss it. Your good isn't just about your comfort. Your good is about your calling. God has been preparing you for something so significant that it required you to be broken in specific places so His light could shine through those very cracks. That one moment when everything fell apart, that wasn't the end of your story. That was God clearing the stage for your real performance. That door that slammed in your face, it wasn't rejection. It was redirection toward a door only you were meant to walk through. You've been feeling displaced because you haven't arrived at your destination yet. You've been feeling different because you are different. God has been saving you for something special, something that requires every scar you carry, every lesson you've learned, every tear you've cried. The invisible thread that's been pulling at your heart isn't leading you away from your pain, it's leading you through your pain to your purpose. Every step that felt like you were walking backward was actually God positioning you for a divine setup. Your journey was different because your assignment is different. Your path was harder because your calling is higher. Your preparation was longer because your impact will be greater. Right now, as you're listening to these words, that thread is pulling stronger than ever. You can feel it, can't you? That stirring in your spirit that says, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. That's not wishful thinking. That's divine recognition. God is about to connect every dot in your story. Every detour is about to make sense. Every delay is about to reveal its purpose. The place He's been leading you to isn't just a destination, it's a revelation of who you were always meant to become. But here's the question that will determine everything. Are you ready to stop seeing your journey as a series of mistakes and start seeing it as a masterpiece in progress? Are you ready to trust that the God who has been preparing you so carefully is about to reveal why every piece of your puzzle was absolutely necessary? Because what comes next will require everything you've learned, everything you've survived, and everything you've become. The place meant for your spirit isn't just waiting for you to arrive, it's waiting for you to arrive ready. You know what haunts me the most about talking to people like you? It's the look in your eyes when you tell me your story. That distant, almost apologetic expression when you say, I've always felt different, but I thought something was wrong with me. Let me stop you right there. Nothing is wrong with you. Everything is right with you. You weren't broken, you were marked. Listen to me carefully. because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear for decades. That feeling of being different, that sense of not quite fitting anywhere, that restlessness that follows you from church to church, job to job, relationship to relationship, that's not a flaw in your design. That's the fingerprint of God on your soul. You see, when God chooses someone for a special assignment, He doesn't make them blend in. He makes them stand out. And standing out in a fallen world feels isolating. It feels lonely. It feels wrong. But you weren't overlooked by heaven. You were hidden by heaven. Think about this for a moment. When a master gardener plants a rare seed, does he put it in the front yard where every passerby can trample it? Number. He plants it in a protected place, away from the chaos, where its roots can grow deep before the world sees its fruit. That's exactly what God did with you. Scripture tells us in 1 Peter 2-9 that we are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. You didn't choose this life, chosen one. This life chose you. Before you were even born, before you took your first breath, God looked through the corridors of time and said, "That one. I need that one for something special." And here's what breaks my heart: while God was marking you for greatness, the world was marking you as different. Your family didn't understand your questions. Your friends couldn't relate to your dreams. Even in church, you felt like you were speaking a different language. They called you too sensitive, too intense, too much. But what they called too much, God called exactly enough. You've spent years apologizing for the very thing that makes you powerful. You've dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable in the dark. You've shrunk yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain the fullness of who you are. Have you ever walked into a room and felt something shift in the atmosphere, yet no one else seemed to notice? That's not your imagination. That's the mark. The spiritual realm recognizes what the natural eye cannot see. You carry an anointing that makes demons nervous, and angels take notice. Psalm 139-14 declares that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. The word fearfully doesn't mean God was afraid when He made you. It means He made you with such reverence, such intentionality, such awe-inspiring purpose, that even He stepped back and marveled at His creation. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not too much or too little. You are exactly what this broken world needs, placed exactly where God needs you to be. But here's where it gets intense, and I need you to really hear me on this. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your marking is a curse. He's used your family's misunderstanding to make you question your calling. He's used your friends' rejection to make you doubt your worth. He's even used the church's inability to recognize your gifting to make you feel spiritually homeless. Why? Because he knows something about you that you're just beginning to discover. He knows that when you finally step into the place meant for your spirit, when you finally embrace the fullness of your calling, kingdoms will shift. Generations will be impacted. The very trajectory of eternity will be altered. That's why he's fought so hard to keep you small, keep you confused, keep you convinced that you're the problem. But I'm here to tell you that your season of hiding is over. God placed you in the shadows so your roots would grow deep, but now it's time for the world to see your fruit. The very qualities that made you feel like an outsider are about to become your greatest strengths. Your sensitivity, that's prophetic discernment. Your intensity, that's holy fire. Your inability to settle for shallow relationships and surface-level conversations, that's because you were designed for deep impact and divine connection. Every rejection you've faced was actually divine redirection. Every door that closed was God protecting you from settling for less than His best. Every moment you felt misunderstood was Him preparing you to understand others who would be just as lost as you once were. You see, God doesn't mark people for easy assignments. He marks them for impossible ones. And impossible assignments require impossible people who don't fit the mold, who think differently, who see what others can't see. Right now, something is stirring in your spirit, isn't it? Something is recognizing the truth of these words. That's not emotion, that's confirmation. That's your soul remembering what your circumstances made you forget. If this part of the message is speaking straight to your story, if you're finally seeing the marking for what it really is, comment "I see it now" below. You're not crazy, you're chosen. And it's time the world knew the difference. But understanding your marking is just the beginning. Because now that you know why you felt different your entire life, the real question becomes, what are you going to do with this revelation? Listen to me, chosen one. That ache in your chest, that homesickness for somewhere you've never been, it's not depression, it's not restlessness. It's your soul crying out for its true coordinates. You've been displaced, but you're not abandoned. God has been orchestrating every step, every stumble, every seeming setback to lead you to the place meant for your spirit. What is this place? It's not a location on any map. It's not a job title or a bank balance or a zip code. This place is a transformation so complete, so profound, that when you arrive there, you won't recognize the person you used to be. Picture this. It's a garden prepared specifically for your soul. Every seed already sown by divine hands. Every pathway carved out by infinite wisdom. The water is already flowing crystal clear streams of purpose, abundance, and unshakable peace. You don't have to plant anything. You don't have to dig wells. You just need to walk in. But here's what will shock you about this place. It's not down the road waiting for you. It's rising inside you right now. As I speak these words, as your spirit recognizes the truth it's been waiting to hear, that place is awakening within you. Your cells are remembering. Your heart is quickening. Your vision is clearing. This is where your spirit aligns with God's original blueprint for your life. Where the chaos in your mind gives way to divine clarity. Where the anxiety that's been your companion for decades dissolves into supernatural peace. Where that constant feeling of being behind or not enough is replaced with the knowing that you are exactly where heaven intended. The prophet Jeremiah heard these words directly from the mouth of God. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Those plans weren't theoretical, they weren't conditional. They were carved in stone before you took your first breath. But let me ask you something that might sting. How long have you been living like an orphan when you're actually royalty? How long have you been begging for crumbs when there's a feast prepared in your name? How long have you been accepting the world's version of your story when God has been holding the real script? Your spirit knows the difference. That's why you felt so restless in places where others seem content. That's why success that satisfies everyone else leaves you empty. That's why you keep searching for something you can't name. You're not broken, you're just not home yet. This place meant for your spirit is where your gifts don't just function, they flourish. Where your voice doesn't just speak, it prophesies. Where your hands don't just work, they heal. Where your presence doesn't just fill a room, it shifts the atmosphere. You've been operating at 30% of your capacity because you've been in the wrong environment. Isaiah saw this moment in a vision. "You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands." This isn't poetry, this is prophecy. This is your future announcing itself. Can you feel it? That stirring deep in your spirit? That's not wishful thinking, that's recognition. Your soul is remembering what your circumstances made you forget. You were never meant to just survive. You were designed to thrive. You were created to overflow. You were chosen to shine so bright that others would be drawn to the God who transformed you. In this place, financial struggle becomes a foreign concept because God Himself takes responsibility for your provision. Broken relationships find healing because love flows from a source that never runs dry. Physical ailments bow to spiritual authority because your body aligns with heaven's frequency. Mental torment gives way to the peace that passes understanding because your mind is finally in agreement with God's thoughts about you. But here's the part that might break your heart and heal it simultaneously. You've been so close to this place, closer than you think. Every time you've felt that flutter of hope, every moment you've sensed something greater calling your name, every second you've experienced unexplainable peace, you were touching the edge of it. The enemy has worked overtime to convince you it's not real, that you're delusional, that you should settle for less and be grateful. But what if the opposite is true? What if settling for less than God's best for you is the real delusion? What if the voice telling you to lower your expectations is the same voice that convinced Eve she needed more than what God had already given her? This place meant for your spirit is where you stop apologizing for taking up space and start understanding that you were created to fill it. Where you stop dimming your light to make others comfortable and start blazing so bright that they're inspired to find their own flame. Where you stop asking permission to be who God made you and start walking in the authority He gave you. The coordinates are being downloaded into your spirit right now. Can you sense them? The path is illuminating itself before your eyes. Can you see it? The door is swinging open. Can you hear it? If this resonates in the deepest part of your being, if something inside you is saying yes louder than your fears are saying, but what if? Then comment below, I receive my place. Let heaven know you're ready to step out of the wilderness and into your promised land. And let someone else know someone who feels as lost as you once did. Tell them, you're not lost, you're being led. Because the truth is, chosen one, you've been in training your entire life for what comes next. Every lesson learned, every wound healed, every mountain climbed has been preparing you to not just reach this place, but to help others find their way there too. The question that will determine everything is this: are you ready to stop visiting your destiny and start living in it? Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear for decades. You think you're behind schedule. You think you missed your moment. You think that diagnosis, that divorce, that bankruptcy, that betrayal wrote the final chapter of your story. You think at 73, 85, 92 years old, God is done with you. You couldn't be more wrong. Isaiah 60:1 thunders across the centuries with a message that will rock your world. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Not your light was here. Not your light might come someday. Your light has come. Right now, this moment, at this age, in this season. The Hebrew word for arise is kuwumit, means to stand up from a place of defeat, to rise from the ashes, to get back up when everyone counted you out. God is commanding you to rise, not suggesting it. He's not asking if you feel ready. He's declaring you are ready. But here's what will blow your mind: everything you've survived, every valley that nearly killed you, every night you cried yourself to sleep, every doctor's report that terrified you, every friend who walked away, every dream that seemed to die. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You didn't lose your chance. You are the chance. Every scar on your heart is a diploma from the University of Divine Preparation. Every tear you've shed watered the ground for the miracle that's about to bloom. Every closed door led you exactly where God needed you to. Be right here, right now, reading these words, feeling your spirit stirring, like Lazarus hearing Jesus call his name. You want to know why you're still here? Why you survived that heart attack when the doctors said you wouldn't? Why you made it through that depression when you wanted to give up? Why you're still breathing when others half your age are gone? Because God has been preparing you for this moment. The place meant for your spirit is not a retirement home, it's a launching pad. The enemy wants you to believe your best days are behind you. He wants you to think that wrinkled hands can't hold miracles, that gray hair disqualifies you from destiny, that your age makes you irrelevant to God's kingdom. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age isn't a liability, it's your qualification. You think God is surprised by your wrinkles. You think He's shocked by your medical chart. You think your financial struggles caught him off guard. He's been orchestrating every detail of your life to bring you to this divine appointment. Here's the truth that will set your soul on fire. You're not too old. It's not too late. That diagnosis doesn't cancel your destiny. That betrayal didn't steal your crown. That financial collapse didn't bankrupt your calling. That death of your spouse didn't bury your purpose. The Apostle Paul declares in Philippians 1-6, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." Notice it doesn't say until you turn 65. It doesn't say until your health fails. It says until the day of Christ Jesus. As long as you're breathing, God's not finished with you. But I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. Place God is leading you to isn't just for you, it's through you. You're not just going to receive a blessing, you're going to become one. Your story of triumph at this age will shatter the misconceptions of a generation that thinks seniors are supposed to just fade away quietly. You think your grandchildren need your money, they need your fire. You think your community needs your charity, they need your testimony. You think the world needs your wisdom, they need your wonder, the wonder of a soul that refused to quit when quitting made sense. Every morning you wake up is God saying, "I'm not done with you yet." Every breath in your lungs is a declaration that your assignment is still active. Every beat of your heart is heaven's rhythm, calling you forward. Right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, something ancient is awakening, something that's been sleeping under layers of disappointment, under decades of making do, under years of settling for less. That's not contentment, that's spiritual amnesia. You forgot who you are. You are a chosen one. You are a carrier of divine DNA. You are a vessel that God has been preparing for 70, 80, 90 years for this moment. The place meant for your spirit isn't a consolation prize for making it this far, it's the grand finale of a masterpiece. The tears streaming down your face right now aren't tears of sadness, they're tears of recognition. Your spirit knows what your mind forgot. You're not winding down, you're revving up for the most significant season of your entire life. But here's what's going to determine whether you step into this place or let fear keep you frozen. What are you going to do with this divine interruption? Are you going to let age be your excuse or your edge? Are you going to let your past define your future or fuel it? Because what happens next will either confirm your calling or confirm your fears. The choice is yours, chosen one. But choose quickly, because heaven is holding its breath, waiting for your answer. Chosen one, you've heard the call, you've felt the stirring. But here's where most people stumble and fall back into mediocrity. They mistake revelation for destination. They think knowing is enough. They think feeling is sufficient. But God didn't give you this vision so you could admire it like a postcard. He gave it to you so you could pack your bags and move. Faith without movement is spiritual paralysis. And you, dear one, were not created to be paralyzed by possibility. Listen to me carefully. The place meant for your spirit isn't waiting for you to feel ready. It's waiting for you to act ready. There's a massive difference. Readiness is a feeling. Action is a choice. And God honors the choice, not the feeling. Proverbs 3-5-6 cuts through every excuse you've been nurturing. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Notice it doesn't say when you understand. It doesn't say when you feel confident. It says acknowledge Him in all your ways, including the scary ones, the uncertain ones, the ones that make your knees shake. You want to know why you've been stuck in spiritual limbo for years? Because you've been waiting for a guarantee instead of trusting in God's guidance. You've been demanding a roadmap when God only promises a next step. But here's the divine paradox: the step creates the path, not the other way around. Every day you delay moving toward the place God prepared. You're not just standing still, you're moving backward. Time doesn't pause for your fears. Your calling doesn't wait for your courage to catch up. While you're hesitating, someone else is stepping into their divine assignment. While you're analyzing, they're actualizing. James 2:17 destroys every spiritual excuse you've been hiding behind. Faith without works is dead, not weak, not insufficient. Dead. Your faith, no matter how sincere, no matter how emotional, becomes a corpse when it's not accompanied by action. And dead faith attracts dead results. Let me ask you something that's going to pierce through every comfortable lie you've been telling yourself. What if God stops calling because you've proven you won't answer? What if the door to your destiny closes because you kept staring at it instead of walking through it? What if someone else gets the assignment meant for you because they had the courage to move when you chose to wait? The brutal truth is this: God's plan for your life has a timeline, not because He's impatient, but because there are people depending on you stepping into your place. There are lives that will be touched, transformed, even saved when you finally align with your divine assignment. Your hesitation isn't just affecting you, it's affecting destinies you haven't even met yet. You've been trained in fire, chosen one. Every heartbreak that didn't break you, every setback that set you up, every valley that taught you to climb, all of it was boot camp for this moment. God didn't waste a single tear, a single struggle, a single sleepless night. He was preparing you, strengthening you, forging you into someone who could handle the weight of their calling. So why are you shrinking now? Why are you second-guessing the very God who brought you this far? You survived 100% of your worst days. You overcame every obstacle that tried to stop you. You're standing here today as living proof that God's grace is sufficient. So what makes you think He'll abandon you now, right at the threshold of your breakthrough? Here's what I need you to understand about divine alignment. It's not a passive experience, it's an active partnership. God provides the destination, but you provide the transportation. He opens the door, but you have to walk through it. He parts the waters, but you have to take the first step into the sea. Every step toward obedience is a trumpet blast into your promised land. Every act of faith is a declaration of war against the forces trying to keep you in the wilderness. When you move in alignment with God's will, heaven mobilizes on your behalf. Angels get their marching orders. Circumstances begin to shift. People start showing up. Resources start flowing. But it all starts with movement. It all begins with you deciding that faith is a verb, not just a noun. Right now, God is asking you to do something specific. You know what it is. That thing you've been putting off, that step you've been avoiding, that conversation you've been postponing, that risk you've been calculating, that's it. That's your next move toward the place prepared for your spirit. Stop waiting for permission. Stop looking for signs you've already received. Stop asking for confirmation of what's already been confirmed in your heart. The only thing standing between you and your divine destiny is your decision to act on what God has already revealed. Write it down. Say it out loud. Declare it to heaven and earth. Then walk it out with everything you've got. The place meant for your spirit isn't just pulling you in, it's depending on you to show up. Your faith is about to become flesh. Your prayers are about to become reality. But only if you're willing to transform your yes, Lord, into here I go, Lord. The question that will determine your next season is this: will you trust God enough to move before you're ready? You had your mountain moment, didn't you? That electric instant when God whispered your name so clearly you could almost taste the promise on your lips. You felt it surge through your veins like lightning, the absolute certainty that your breakthrough was coming, that your destiny was unfolding, that everything was about to change. But now, silence, delay, the same four walls staring back at you, the same bills on the kitchen counter, the same reflection in the mirror that doesn't match the vision God showed you. And somewhere between that divine download and this mundane Tuesday morning, doubt started seeping in like water through a cracked foundation. Here's what nobody tells you about being chosen. The wilderness between the word and the walk is where most people quit. It's that brutal stretch of highway where the gas gauge reads empty, your GPS shows no signal, and the destination feels like a cruel joke someone played on your heart. Moses knew this territory intimately. 40 years, not 40 days, not 40 weeks, 40 years, wandering in circles between the promise of the promised land and actually stepping foot on it. Can you imagine? An entire generation died in that wilderness, clutching promises they never saw fulfilled, holding on to words that felt increasingly hollow with each passing season. But here's the shocking truth that will either devastate you or liberate you. The wilderness isn't God's punishment. It's his preparation room. You think you're being abandoned, but you're being forged. You think you're falling behind, but you're being refined. Every frustrating delay, every closed door, every moment when it feels like God has gone radio silent, it's not rejection, it's divine incubation. If you've heard the promise but haven't seen the breakthrough, say it out loud right now, still holding on. Because this wilderness between promise and proof isn't a void, it's holy ground. It's where God separates the chosen from the curious, the called from the comfortable, the desperate from the merely interested. Think about David. He was anointed king as a teenager, oil dripping down his forehead while the prophet Samuel declared his destiny before his family. But then what happened? He went right back to the sheep fields. For years, dodging spears thrown by a jealous king, hiding in caves, living like a fugitive while wearing the invisible crown of God's promise. Can you imagine the questions that tormented his mind during those years? Did I hear God wrong? Was that moment with Samuel just wishful thinking? If I'm really supposed to be king, why am I eating scraps in a cave? The place between promise and proof is where your faith gets its PhD. It's where surface-level belief transforms into unshakable conviction. It's where you learn to trust God's timing, even when his silence is deafening. But let me ask you something that might sting. Are you more in love with God's gifts or with God himself? Because the wilderness has a way of revealing what you're really chasing. If you're only hanging on because you want the blessing, you'll never have the strength to endure the process. But if you're holding on because you trust the one who made the promise, you'll discover supernatural endurance you never knew you possessed. Here's what I've learned after 50 years of watching people navigate this treacherous terrain. God's delays are not God's denials. His silence is not his absence. His slow-cooking method isn't cruelty, it's kindness. He knows that if he gave you everything you asked for when you first asked for it, it would destroy you. The promotion you're praying for requires character muscles you haven't developed yet. The financial breakthrough you're begging for needs wisdom, foundations you're still building. The relationship you're crying out for demands emotional maturity you're still growing into. God isn't withholding your breakthrough to torture you. He's protecting you from receiving something you're not yet equipped to steward. But I know this doesn't make the waiting any easier. I know your savings account doesn't care about divine timing. I know your loneliness doesn't understand spiritual seasons. I know your body doesn't feel the comfort of heavenly perspective when it's racked with pain at 3 a.m. The wilderness is real, the struggle is valid, the exhaustion is legitimate, and if anyone tries to minimize your pain with cheap spiritual platitudes, they've never walked this path themselves. But here's what you need to understand. Every day you survive in this wilderness, you're becoming someone new. Every morning you choose faith over fear. You're being rewired for greatness. Every night you fall asleep still believing despite the evidence. You're developing the kind of trust that moves mountains. The Israelites missed this completely. They spent 40 years complaining about the journey instead of recognizing that the journey was changing them. They wanted the destination without the transformation. They wanted the blessing without the becoming. Don't make their mistake. The person you are today cannot handle the destiny God has planned for you. But the person you're becoming in this wilderness, they're being custom built for extraordinary purpose. And here's the terrifying, exhilarating truth. You're closer than you think. The wilderness always feels longest right before the breakthrough. The night is always darkest right before dawn. Your phone rings when you've stopped checking it. Your miracle shows up when you've stopped looking for it. But this wilderness you're walking through, it's about to get darker before it gets brighter. Because God isn't just leading you to your destiny, He's preparing you to survive it. The question that will determine everything about your future is this: will you trust the process, or will you abort the mission when the pressure intensifies? But here's what nobody prepared you for, chosen one. After God calls you, after He shows you glimpses of your destiny, after He fills your heart with divine dreams that set your soul on fire, comes the silence, the deafening, soul-crushing silence. You wake up one morning, and the voice that once whispered your name so clearly has gone quiet. The signs that used to appear everywhere have disappeared. The doors that were opening are now slamming shut, and you're left standing in what feels like a spiritual wasteland, wondering if you imagined it all. Did I really hear from God? Was that voice in my spirit real, or was I just desperate for meaning? Maybe I'm not chosen. Maybe I'm just delusional. This is the testing ground every chosen one must walk through. This is where God separates the curious from the committed, the wishful from the willing. Because here's the brutal truth: everybody wants the promise, but not everyone wants the process. Jesus Himself was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Think about that. The Son of God, fresh from His baptism, where heaven opened and the Father declared, "This is my beloved Son," immediately led into 40 days of isolation, temptation, and silence. If Jesus had to walk through the wilderness, what makes you think you'd be exempt? The wilderness isn't punishment, it's preparation. But nobody tells you how it feels when you're in it. How the silence becomes so loud it drowns out everything else. How you start questioning every supernatural experience you've ever had. How you begin to wonder if that burning in your chest was just heartburn, if that peace you felt was just emotional manipulation, if that vision of your future was just wishful thinking. You cry out like David did in Psalm 13. "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" And the echo of your own voice is the only response you hear. This is when most people quit. This is when they decide that following God is too hard, too uncertain, too painful. They go back to their old lives, their comfortable mediocrity, their predictable disappointment. They choose the familiar hell over the uncertain heaven. But you're still here. You're still listening. That tells me something about your spirit that even you might not know yet. The silence you're experiencing right now, it's not God abandoning you, it's God activating you. Heaven isn't quiet because it forgot about you. Heaven is quiet because it's waiting to see if you still believe in the dark what God whispered to you in the light. This is your wilderness season, and every wilderness serves a purpose. It strips away everything you thought you needed so you can discover what you actually need. It removes every crutch so you learn to walk by faith alone. It silences every voice except the one that matters most, the voice of your own unshakable conviction that God called you for such a time as this. Do you know why the wilderness feels so isolating? Because it is. God has to get you alone to do surgery on your soul. He has to separate you from the voices of doubt, from the opinions of others, from the distractions of the world. In the wilderness, it's just you and God. No audience, no applause, no external validation. Just raw, unfiltered faith. But here's what's happening while you feel abandoned. God is building something in you that can't be built anywhere else. Character that can only be forged in the fire of uncertainty. Strength that can only be developed under pressure. Faith that can only grow in the dark. You think the silence means God isn't working, but the silence is God working. He's working in places so deep you can't feel it yet. He's rearranging circumstances you can't see. He's positioning people you haven't met. He's preparing opportunities that don't exist yet. The wilderness isn't where dreams go to die. It's where they go to become indestructible. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God appeared in a burning bush. Joseph spent years in prison before he became second in command of Egypt. David spent years running from Saul before he sat on the throne. Paul spent 3 years in Arabia after his Damascus Road experience before he began his ministry. The pattern is clear. God calls, then he cultivates. He promises, then he prepares. He reveals the vision, then he develops the vessel. You're in the development phase right now. And I know it's excruciating. I know you want to fast forward through this part. I know you're tired of waiting, tired of hoping, tired of believing for something you can't see. But this season is not your enemy, it's your greatest teacher. The silence is not absence, it's activation. The wilderness is not punishment, it's preparation. The testing is not torture, it's transformation. And when you emerge from this season, and you will emerge, you won't just have a testimony, you'll have authority. You won't just have a story, you'll have supernatural strength. You won't just have faith, you'll have unshakable conviction that no devil in hell can steal. The question isn't whether God will come through for you. The question is whether you'll still be standing when he does. Because what's about to happen next in your story is going to require every ounce of spiritual muscle this wilderness has built in you. Chosen one, we need to talk about something the church doesn't want to discuss, something that makes religious folks uncomfortable. We need to talk about your wounds. Not the surface scratches, the deep gashes that still bleed when nobody's watching. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That betrayal that rewrote your definition of trust. That diagnosis that shattered your sense of safety. That childhood trauma that convinced you God wasn't paying attention. That financial ruin that made you question if heaven even cares about your bills. Here's what nobody told you. God didn't allow your pain to destroy you. He allowed it to prepare you. But there's a catch. Your wounds can't take you where you're going. The place meant for your spirit, that sacred destination God has been leading you toward, has a security system. You can't enter carrying the baggage of bitterness. You can't walk through the gates of divine purpose dragging chains of resentment. This is why God is calling you to the altar tonight. Not a church altar, the altar of exchange. Where pain becomes power, where trauma transforms into testimony, where your deepest scars become your greatest strengths. Think about this. What if the very thing the enemy used to break you is the exact thing God wants to use to break through for others? What if your mess is actually your message waiting to be born? Right now, I want you to do something that might feel uncomfortable. Close your eyes for just a moment. Think of the one thing the enemy used to try to destroy you. The thing that still makes your chest tight when you remember it. That betrayal, that loss, that diagnosis, that abandonment. Got it? Good. Now here's what I need you to understand. That pain you're holding on to, it's not protecting you anymore. It's preventing you from reaching the place God has prepared for your spirit. The Bible tells us in Romans 8:18, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Did you catch that? Not revealed, revealed in us. Your pain isn't just going to be healed, it's going to be transformed into glory that radiates from within you. But here's the radical truth that will either set you free or offend you completely. God is not asking you to forget what happened. He's asking you to trade it, to place it on the altar, and receive something far more powerful in return. This altar isn't just about healing. It's a trade post between dimensions, between the kingdom of pain and the kingdom of power, between your past and your purpose, between who you were and who you're becoming. Joseph understood this altar, sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused, forgotten in prison. But listen to what he said when he finally met those same brothers years later. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. That's the exchange happening right now in your life. Every tear you've cried is being traded for fire. Every betrayal is becoming boldness. Every diagnosis is transforming into divine declaration. Every financial loss is being exchanged for supernatural provision. But you have to release it. You have to place it on the altar. I know what you're thinking. But you don't understand what they did to me. You don't know how deep this goes. You don't know how much I've lost. You're right. I don't know your specific story, but I know your God. And he specializes in turning graves into gardens, crosses into crowns, and pain into power. The place meant for your spirit, that divine destination you've been sensing, it's not just a place of blessing, it's a place of authority. It's where God positions you to heal others with the same comfort he's used to heal you. But you can't give away what you haven't received. You can't minister healing while you're still bleeding. This is why the altar of exchange is not optional, it's essential. Here's what happens the moment you release that pain. The enemy loses his legal right to torment you with it. That memory that used to control your emotions, it becomes powerless. That fear that used to dictate your decisions, it gets replaced with faith. That bitterness that used to poison your relationships, it transforms into wisdom that helps others navigate their own healing. You're not just getting healed tonight, you're getting promoted. From victim to victor, from wounded to warrior, from broken to breakthrough. But I need you to understand something crucial. This exchange requires your participation. God won't force you to release what you're not ready to surrender. He's a gentleman. He waits for your permission to transform your pain into power. So I'm asking you directly, are you ready to trade? Are you ready to place that pain, that betrayal, that loss, that trauma on the altar and receive divine power in return? Are you ready to stop being defined by what happened to you and start being empowered by what happened through you? Because on the other side of this altar, there's a version of you that doesn't just survive you, thrive. A version that doesn't just overcome you, overflow. A version that doesn't just heal you, become a healer. The place meant for your spirit is waiting, but you can't reach it carrying the weight of yesterday's wounds. Tonight we trade, tonight we exchange. Tonight your pain becomes your power. But here's what I need you to know before we move forward. This exchange isn't just about personal healing. God is preparing you for something bigger, something that will require every ounce of power you're about to receive. Are you ready to discover what God has been preparing you for all along? Listen closely, chosen one. I need to destroy a lie that's been eating you alive for years. The lie that your delay means God's denial. The lie that your waiting season is wasted time. The lie that because you haven't arrived yet, you never will. That's not delay, that's disguise. God isn't late, He's strategic. You've been sitting in what feels like heaven's waiting room for months, maybe years, watching others get called while you remain seated. You've seen people with half your faith get twice your breakthrough. You've watched individuals who started after you finish before you, and the enemy has been whispering in your ear, God forgot about you. You missed your moment. Your time has passed. But what if I told you that waiting room is actually a war room? What if every day you thought God was ignoring you, He was actually preparing you? What if every month that felt like punishment was actually boot camp for your assignment? The prophet Habakkuk cried out to God, "How long, Lord?" Sound familiar? But God's response shattered every timeline. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Did you catch that? It will not delay. Not maybe. Not if you're lucky. It will not delay. Your breakthrough isn't behind schedule, it's right on time. Divine time. A timing so precise, so calculated, that one day early would be disaster, and one day late would be defeat. God doesn't run on your calendar, chosen one. Your calendar runs on His eternal purpose. But here's what's breaking my heart. While you've been sitting in that waiting room, you've been treating it like a punishment instead of preparation. You've been seeing it as evidence of God's rejection instead of proof of His selection. Do you understand what God does with His chosen ones? He doesn't rush them, He develops them. Think about David, anointed as a teenager, crowned at 30, 15 years in the waiting room, 15 years of dodging spears, hiding in caves, running for his life. Was God late? Number: God was making sure when David got the throne, he could handle the weight of the crown. Think about Joseph. Had the dream at 17, became prime minister at 30. 13 years of slavery and prison. 13 years of watching his brothers prosper while he suffered. Was God asleep? Number: God was building character that could manage a nation's survival during 7 years of famine. You think your wait has been long? Moses waited 40 years before his burning bush moment. 40 years. That's longer than most people's entire careers. But when God finally called him at 80 years old, Moses had the desert knowledge, the leadership experience, and the broken humility necessary to lead 2 million people through the wilderness. Delay is not denial. Delay is development. But here's where it gets dangerous. Chosen one. The waiting room is where most people forfeit their destiny. They get tired. They get bitter. They start believing the lie that if God really loved them, he wouldn't make them wait. They trade their birthright for instant gratification. They settle for good enough instead of waiting for God's best. Don't you dare be one of them. The enemy's greatest weapon isn't your past, it's your impatience. He knows he can't stop God's plan, but he can trick you into abandoning it. He whispers, "It's taking too long. You're getting too old. Others are passing you by. Just take what's available now." But Isaiah 40:31 destroys that lie. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Those who wait on the Lord. Not those who rush God. Not those who force doors. Not those who settle for less. Those who wait. And what happens to those who wait? They don't just survive, they soar. They don't just endure, they excel. They don't just make it through, they mount up with wings like eagles. The waiting room is where God builds spiritual muscle. It's where he develops your faith, refines your character, and prepares you for weight you can't even imagine yet. Every day you've waited hasn't been wasted. It's been invested. God has been accumulating compound interest on your faithfulness. You want to know the truth about your delay? God has been protecting you from the very thing you've been praying for until you're ready to steward it. That promotion you wanted 3 years ago, you would have lost it in 6 months because you weren't ready for the responsibility. That relationship you've been begging for, it would have destroyed you because you hadn't healed from the last one yet. That financial breakthrough you've been claiming, you would have mismanaged it because you hadn't learned stewardship yet. God's delays are always his protections in disguise. But here's what happens when his timing aligns with your readiness. Everything starts moving at once. Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister in 1 day. Esther went from orphan to queen in 1 year. David went from shepherd to giant killer in 1 battle. Your sudden is coming, chosen one. And when it hits, you're going to understand why every day of waiting was worth it. You're going to see why God's timing was perfect. You're going to thank him for every closed door that led you to the right one. The waiting room is the war room, because that's where you learn to fight doubt, defeat discouragement, and destroy the lie that God has forgotten you. That's where you develop the spiritual endurance for the marathon ahead. That's where you discover that your faith isn't just belief, it's weapon-grade trust that can move mountains. So let me ask you something that will determine your destiny. Are you going to let the wait break you, or are you going to let it make you? Are you going to see this season as evidence of God's rejection, or proof of his selection? Are you going to abandon ship just before you reach shore? If you're still waiting, still believing, still standing when everything in you wants to sit down, drop, still standing in the comments, let the enemy know you didn't give up. Let heaven know you're still in the game. Let God know that no matter how long it takes, you're not going anywhere. Because chosen one, what's coming next is going to require every ounce of strength, every grain of faith, every drop of endurance you've built in this waiting room. And when you finally step into the place meant for your spirit, you're going to need all of it. Chosen one, As we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I want you to remember 3 unshakable truths that will anchor your soul in the storms ahead. First, your displacement is not punishment, it's preparation. Every valley you've walked through, every door that closed in your face, every season of waiting that felt endless, none of it was wasted. God has been leading you through the wilderness to get you to your promised land. The place meant for your spirit isn't just a destination, it's who you're becoming along the way. Second, your timing is not God's timing, and that's the greatest mercy He could give you. What you thought was delay was actually divine protection. What felt like denial was actually development. God's calendar runs on eternity, and He's been preparing both you and your breakthrough to collide at the perfect moment. Third, you are not walking this path alone. The same God who parted the Red Sea for Moses, who made the sun stand still for Joshua, who turned water into wine for a wedding feast, that same God is orchestrating every detail of your life right now. He hasn't brought you this far to abandon you here. But I also want you to know that you're part of something bigger than yourself. There's a community of chosen ones watching this message right now who understand your struggle because they've lived it. They know what it feels like to be homesick for a place you've never been. They understand the ache of divine displacement and the faith required to keep walking when you can't see the path ahead. You are not alone in this journey. Every person who commented 777, every soul who dropped, still standing in the chat, every heart that resonated with this message, we're all walking toward the same destination. We're all being led by the same God to the places meant for our spirits. Let me ask you one final question that will echo in your heart long after this video ends. What if the very thing that has made you feel most displaced is actually God's way of ensuring you never settle for anything less than His best? Before you go, I want to pray over you. Not just words, but a declaration of faith over your future. If you're comfortable, let me place my hand on your shoulder through this screen and speak life over your situation. Father God, I thank you for every chosen one listening to these words right now. Lord, you see their tears of frustration, their moments of doubt, their nights of wondering if you've forgotten them. But today, we declare that displacement is not abandonment, it's appointment. God, I pray that you would open their spiritual eyes to see what you've been preparing behind the scenes. Let them feel your presence in their waiting rooms and your purpose in their valleys. Give them strength for one more day, faith for one more step, hope for one more season. Lord, I pray for divine acceleration in their lives. Let doors swing open that no man can shut. Let opportunities align that only heaven could orchestrate. Let their spirits find rest in the place you've been preparing for them since before time began. And Father, when they finally step into their divine destination, let them remember this moment. Let them remember that you were always leading them, always loving them, always working on their behalf. Let their breakthrough become a testimony that inspires others to keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting in your perfect timing. Protect them from the enemy's lies about delay. Strengthen them against discouragement. Surround them with divine favor and supernatural provision. And let them know, beyond any shadow of doubt, that they are chosen, they are loved, and they are being led to a place where their spirits will finally feel at home. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Asterisk. Asterisk. If this message has touched your heart, if you feel the Lord moving in your spirit, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us where you are in your journey. Share what God is doing in your life, what you're believing Him for, what breakthrough you're standing on the edge of receiving. Let this community pray with you and encourage you. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who feels displaced, someone who's been waiting, someone who needs to know they're not forgotten, please share this video with them. Sometimes God uses us to deliver His messages to the people He's been trying to reach. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what God wanted to speak over your life today. If this message has blessed you, Please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. There are more chosen ones out there who need to hear these words, and your subscription helps us reach them. But most importantly, remember this: you are not lost, you are being led. You are not forgotten, you are chosen, and the place meant for your spirit is closer than you think. Keep walking, chosen one. Your divine destination awaits.